What's up? You're back with another session of the Sisters in Therapy podcast. I'm Dr. Mercedes.
I'm Dr. B.
I'm Dr. TK.
So we are back with another session, and this session is titled Black Joy by Any Means Necessary. I'm excited for this one.
Because we love Black Joy.
So with May being Mental Health Awareness Month, I thought that it'd be dope for us to talk about joy as it relates to mental health. And joy is important for all the people, but for this session, we're talking about specifically Black people. So joy, what when you think of joy, like what comes up for you? T or Britt?
What comes up for me is I'm sorry.
It's a feeling. So joy is just a feeling of happiness or pleasure, but I found the definition that I really liked, and it was like the emotion of great delight. I said, I like that.
Yeah.
The emotion of great delight or pleasure or elation. So when you think about that, I say everybody deserves a little bit of that. Everybody. But Black people specifically have things that get in the way of us kind of accessing that level of happiness and joy and bliss. So when you think about important is joy for Black people's mental health specifically?
I think it's a big part of it, really, because to your point earlier about like how we're over policed and really just trying to find our way through living life in general. I think it's important for, I mean, obviously for everybody's mental health, but for Black people in particular, because of the systemic issues that we've had to really overcome. And that's why people say all the time, like, y'all lucky we just really want to be left alone. We just want equal rights. Like, just leave us alone, really. But I think, too, what's so important about joy is, like, knowing that there could be small joys. Like, that's, people view it as, like, these big fireworks type of experiences, and it can be that. But, like, sometimes we got to start small, you know?
Okay.
Not only is it important, I think it's essential.
Yeah.
It is a necessary.
Absolutely necessary and essential because, again, like y'all said, not just the systemic stuff, but life in itself. We say all the time, life is traumatic.
Right.
So you got to have something that keeps you going. And sometimes that's joy.
Right.
Okay. So for Black people, joy is radical.
For sure.
Rest is radical.
Yes.
And those things are essential to a overall healthy well-being. When I think about us being over-policed and underprotected in almost every caveat of this country, and not even just America, because Black people across the world kind of face the similar issues, this necessary practice of accessing joy and rest can feel like a chore sometimes, because sometimes I think we get a little exhausted.
But I think because it is a chore, and I think it's something that we have to be intentional about just as much as we are intentional about the other ways that we have to be productive in the world.
That's a good point.
So even with you mentioning like it's a chore, like it might feel like a chore until you get it the way that you want it to come to you, right? Like you have to practice it. So in a way, it might not necessarily be a bad thing. I guess it just depends on if it feels exhausting to seek.
It feels exhausting to seek when every time you kind of, pull yourself up, you have these systems that are bigger than you pulling you back down or reminding you that, hey, you are still a Black person in this country. And, sometimes it feels like they don't want us to be happy or they don't want us to have that joy. So I think it's our responsibility to take it serious. Kind of like you said, these other things such as Black excellence and Black girl magic and all these things are also great too, but we have to also prioritize joy and rest.
Absolutely.
How do you guys assess? What do you say, T?
I said in the ordinary.
Okay.
Yes. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Just being. That's a good point. Because why we always got to be magical.
Exactly.
Right. And I'm glad you brought up that point because there's been like this trend on TikTok where it's like, no, just pretend like you don't know. Like you don't have to know. Like you could just be like, oh, I don't know. And be okay with that because I think even through how we've been in survival mode, we don't even know that we are seeking perfectionism, right? So like we always feel like everything has to be top tier when it could just be. It could be ordinary. It could also be mediocre. It doesn't have to be anything what it is,
Okay. How do you assess for access to joy with your clients in therapy? Because I try to center my practice on Black joy and joy being a radical act and a necessary practice for you to sustain your mental health.
Right.
How do you guys assess for that with your clients?
I love that question.
Okay.
Assess for access. Because we can't assume that all clients have access to joy.
We can't.
Or the type of joy that we know or that we're familiar with. So I think we have to assess what joy looks like in their life. And I think for mine, it's not necessarily an overt thing that I do. It comes up more in just getting their history or where they're at and what's coming up in their life, because I also think that it can be very easy to not be able to identify or name joy the same way we have a difficult time naming our strengths. Because we get busy in the hustle and bustle of things, or we say we went here and it was cool. You know, I ain't hung out with them in a while, and then they just go so fast to the next thing. So I think a part of the practice is kind of pulling some of those out and then asking a few more questions around that to see, is this a joyful experience for you, and getting them to kind of name that.
I find myself being fascinated with the fact when people say, I don't know. And I'm like, but this is a beautiful place to be, because as you always say, there's so much autonomy in not knowing, because it means you have so much to explore within yourself, and joy can be whatever you want it to be in this moment with this current version of yourself. It kind of gives people the power to say, this is mine. This makes me happy. You didn't give this to me. You can't take this away.
Exactly.
So it's like you giving, my thing in therapy is definitely giving the power to the people. And I think we don't have access to power because everything outside of us seems so complicated.
Absolutely.
But if you tune in, like you said, Britt, in one of the sessions, like the outer world, yeah, for sure. But if I tune into the inner world, like things are a little bit better here.
And it feels more accessible that way.
It does. It's more attainable.
Yeah, attainable. For sure.
I like that.
Yeah, and I with my clients, like I think we all kind of do the same thing, all three of us. It's just we explore it differently. And I always like to ask, like what do you like to do for fun? Because people, depending on what they're going for, they center their lives around not being perfect, but they're making
goals.
Their entire life about goals and healing, right? And it feels so linear.
And self-improvement.
Yeah. And so like I'll ask, like, do you do anything nostalgic? Like, when's the last time you've laughed, or like...
Oh, laugh. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
After you lost track of time.
Yeah. Like, when is the last time you've done those, like, literally stopped and smelled the roses?
Yeah. I have them take me back to the moment. I want to go person, place, thing.
Yeah.
I want to think about all the senses. What were you hearing? What kind of music was playing? Who was around? How'd your body feel in that moment?
Yes. That's so important. I'm glad you just said that, because sometimes we think about like the senses and taking people back. People think about trauma. Yeah. And I'm like, no, we are more than those things. Yes. Nostalgia is also something that you can reminisce about and go back to and access those memories, and you can take that. They can feed you for this moment when you're struggling.
And that can be so powerful.
Yes.
Being able to recall those times.
Agreed.
And using that as that can bring you back from the brink of
a lot
anxiety.
of things.
Oh, so many things. So many things.
Yeah.
Rest is just as important as joy. And in our grind culture, we have kind of normalized this sleep until you sleep when you die type thing.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But I see people all over, you know, trying to like dismantle that and say, no, I'm going to take me a nap and all these things. So I do get a lot of clients who think they don't have time to rest.
Yeah. Because, well, do you know why though? Like, what do you think their hesitancy is to rest?
Well, my thing is people are constantly worried about things that they have no control over, and it's taking up their mind.
Yeah.
But then there is a lot of stuff going on in America that makes people just be up at night.
Yeah.
So I just think rest is something, that's something I struggle with, me, myself. So like for this second quarter of the year, I've been telling myself, like, no, you are going to rest and you're going to prioritize putting stuff down. And then this book club read has definitely been slapping me in the face. The Rest is Resistance, a manifesto by Trisha Hersey.
Yeah.
That book has kind of been like, okay, Mercedes, this has been a mirror of accountability for me when it comes to rest. And it is so important.
Yeah, for sure.
But I don't know the answer to that question.
Well, I think it's multifaceted, really. I think people are afraid of, what does it look like when I stop?
Oh, yeah.
Or like, what does it look like when I slow down?
Yeah, because we function in chaos.
Exactly. So there's this avoidance tactic that we're not aware of. And it further fuels, well, if I could just go, then I can get so many things done.
It's so
but
dangerous.
Then it is. But
it's
then
so
like,
dangerous.
When's the last time you just enjoyed a dinner and we're present for the dinner? Or like, watch the TV show, or like
that's
read,
the thing about
like,
lack of rest.
Yeah,
it's lack of presence.
Yes,
but also it's just really dangerous. When we don't sleep, there's a sticky substance that form on the top of our brain, I heard, that make you hallucinate. and just be delirious. Like this is it's a science to rest. It really is important.
Absolutely.
Even if you're like trying to do something such as train for a race or get these body goals, if you're not sleeping well, none of that stuff matters.
No,
none of it.
Not at all. I was listening to this podcast, and her husband talked about how to build a consensual relationship with your body. We often talk about consent.
Somebody sent that
externally, right?
Sorry.
Huh?
Okay, yeah.
What?
This sounds familiar. I said one of you must have sent that to us.
Probably. But I love that episode in particular because we can easily point out pain, or I have to go to the bathroom, or I'm hungry, right?
Yes.
But the emotional part is not as easy to really pinpoint, right? So it's like, if your body, rest and slow down, or like,
yes. And the reason why that is a problem for us is because of slavery. Trisha Hersey talks about this in her book.
Yeah.
For generations, they have been pushed to the depths of exhaustion, and that is how they was taught to ignore their body's needs. And not even just that, even in this book Rest is Resistance, she talks about a little kid being in school and how the kid has to go to the restroom, but the teacher says no, you cannot go to the restroom. You're teaching the kid to ignore what his body needs.
Exactly.
So we have
do the same thing with food.
Yes. So I'm like, there's so many horrible lessons that actually teaches us to ignore what our body needs. So then we grow up not knowing how to give ourselves what we need.
And I think that's part of it when we talk about the barriers to rest. Is there's a mind-body disconnect.
100%.
Yeah. So the key is to unlearn to learn. Release what no longer serves you. While also recognizing like you don't have to survive the same. Like look at where you got yourself to this point here. Have you given this person credit for where you're at currently? And I think when I ask my clients that question, they're like, no, I just like kept going. And then I just keep going and keep going. I'm guilty of that.
Yes.
But it's a valuable lesson when you can
chasing?
just sit. Well, it's a transition from school, really. I was talking to my therapist about it.
What are we chasing?
Yeah. I don't even chasing? Even as a kid.
What's the consequence of resting?
I don't even know
the dissertation not being complete.
That
the chapter's not being done. She also talks about that in the book.
Yeah,
that's really where we learn to not rest.
I also think
learned way before that.
Right. A big part of my life was like I played tennis my entire life, and so we would go to tennis tournaments like every weekend. So like it was not that my parents intended for that to be a go, but that was just our life, right? So like when you have so much time on your hands, it's like, what am I supposed to do with this? So it's easy to fill up your time with just stuff.
Because so we don't learn rest.
Right. No, we don't learn
We learn
rest.
To be busy because being still is uncomfortable.
We also got to think about, even when we talk about like systemic issues, like this idea that if you don't have your kids busy enough, they're going to get into something that is going to put them in danger.
But people do think that an idle mind is a horrible thing or something. I don't know. Something people say.
Yeah. But we forget that there are other ways that you could do things.
I was about to say that's very black and white thinking.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
So the new, not that you guys are parents, but the new way of kind of keeping kids not busy but productive or teaching them ways to be would be what for you guys?
That's a good question.
Goodness.
Well,
engaging with them. Let's go outside. You can teach about nature. Like there's so many teach about. We follow somebody on Instagram and they have their 3 little kiddos. They have their own like little cooking areas that they bring out. They have on their little aprons. They do the little chopping blocks together.
Ooh. Giving them opportunities to explore what they may like.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
There's so many different things.
So many different things. Okay.
And it's a family activity and it's not necessarily because they need to eat anyway.
Okay.
And it's basic living skills. I mean, it's multi-purpose.
Right. And it's a slow activity. Like even maybe implementing like slow activities to where you're just like
teaching
coloring.
people to slow down.
Yeah.
So essentially, Brittany, I think what you're saying is teaching kids how to relax.
Yeah.
Because that's what I love the most about this Rest is Resistance book. Not to keep talking about this book.
It's not an ad, guys, but it's an excellent
book. In the book, she's just literally saying, this is what I've learned from my grandmother.
Oh, my God, yes.
Not just that.
I think that's beautiful.
The consequences firsthand.
She did.
Yeah.
Okay. So for Black people, resilience became our default because for generations, our ancestors were pushed to the brink of their emotional capacity. When you think about your communities or some of the people you were around as a child, what do you recall from your childhood about Black joy? And we wasn't calling it Black joy. We was just doing things, such as you just kind of mentioned a little bit, Brie, like playing tennis. I'm sure at some point there was joy for you. Maybe it still is, but what do you guys recall from your childhood about Black joy?
I mean, my family has family reunions like every 2 years, and that goes back as far as my mother can remember. I can't. I'm only 32, so I can't. I don't know. I actually need to ask her, like, when did that tradition start? But like, just being in that space with my family, because we're a big family on my mom's side, like it felt safe. Even on my dad's side, when we would gather, and I didn't know everybody, it still felt like family, right? Like we're present, we're laughing, we're talking, we're grilling, we're playing softball. All of that was joy for me. I didn't call it that. I just knew this. It didn't matter where we were. It felt like home. And we were always excited to see each other. We would have moments, but like it's always love. We're like the loudest people outside because we're having a good time, really.
Okay.
So that was my first observation of joy, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
For me, it's definitely probably the softball in the community with everybody playing softball. I mean, in street clothes. Like nobody had on like sports clothes. People were out there playing softball in blue jeans and Dickies and work pants, church clothes, and it would get real serious too. And we would have a good time. And there was people selling like what we call cool cups. Somebody then took some juice and froze it and cut the top off and started charging us a quarter for it. But that was Black joy to me growing up, and definitely not having the language, but that's me thinking about resilient communities who, you know, the world is not expecting you to be this happy because it ain't set up for you to be. Right. But you take the time out and you carve out these spaces for people in your community to enjoy one another and the cookouts and all these things. And I find that beautiful. And now that I reflect over that part, I'm like, that was Black joy. And when you think about your parents or people when you're growing up and how maybe at the end of a work week they would hang out with their friends or people would come over and they would play dominoes or they would play cards. I'm like, that was their self-care. I didn't, when you think about self-care or joy across generations, I'm like, that was their self-care. They just wasn't calling it that. And I think that's beautiful that they knew they needed to unwind or grab a drink.
I'm going to say grab a drink, throw the dominoes down.
Taking time after work to play cards, yell, sing and dance. I think singing and dancing has been, you know, one of the biggest access to joy for Black people.
I agree.
Singing and dancing.
I was going to say, that made me think about the rink. We used to do soul night at the rink on Sundays, and everybody would go. Everybody, of course, have your best outfit for the weekend. People would dance. I don't recall anybody actually being in skates because we were in Arkansas. This wasn't Atlanta.
We're in Cascades.
Right, Cascades.
Yeah, no, we wasn't doing none of that. But everybody was still on the rink. Just dancing. Music was playing, having a good time, laughing. But there was always music. Every time
always
when
music.
you thought
Always
about childhood
music.
joy,
going to always
every
be
memory
music.
I had,
Going to be
music was there.
And food.
Music and food.
Music and food.
And the reason why I know songs like The Temptations or Luther Vandross or James Brown is because they was playing all those things, even though none of these artists were, you know, popular at the time that I was growing up, but somebody kept this music alive. I think that's also a big part of our Black joy, is just accessing that old music and singing, and them singing about things that they were going through or that Black people was going through collectively, but also just about joy. And I think that this may be a little Beyonce fandom, but Beyonce has done a good job of trying to make sure we have some Black joy with some of her music, and I actually heard her speak about it. She said she felt like the world needed to dance, so that's why
she did Renaissance.
That's why. But even before Renaissance, Black Parade and that Lion King album was giving me Black joy.
Yeah, y'all slept on Black is King, and I don't like that.
It's one of the best albums. But anyways,
visuals, girl.
They
slept
music.
on my sis. Don't do it again.
Even Beyonce makes music for Black joy sometimes, and we need to give her credit for that because not a lot of people are making music for us to access joy.
Exactly.
You know,
that's important.
Yes.
She is doing that.
That's true.
So give that girl her credit. Okay.
Period.
I'm gonna move on from that. But so creativeness and expressiveness through sneakers, fashion, and hairstyles, that's always been something that's big for us as well. I do believe in the statement that, girl, you're not depressed, you just need your hair done. I believe
Let me tell you, because
I believe that
your hair and
wholeheartedly.
your nails. It's the nails for me.
It's definitely the hair.
Clackety clack.
So-
Okay, but also, like, who told us that we had to get new outfits before we go on a trip?
I did.
You created that for everybody?
Because
it's just something we got to do.
Because why not?
I know. Somebody said, like, who told us that we had to do this every single time?
Every single time. But
I've gotten a little bit better because I used to be like,
I don't know,
all
Brit.
the time. Okay, guys, I said a little bit better. I didn't say 100% improved. What's y'all's problem?
But I love that. I love the creativeness through the fashion. From the sneakers to the clothes, doing swaggy, doing more with less. LeBron James talked about it before, and he was like, "You will always, no matter where you can be in the projects, and they are gonna be swagged out." And we're gonna find a way to make it look good. Exactly. That's something we do well. Yeah. Because if you look good, you feel good. And if you feel good, you look good. Exactly. Whatever James Brown said.
Again, I think that's one of the things that you said, another way that we resist. Because joy is resistance, rest is resistance. Yes. I think fashion is also a part of resistance as well. It's that what you said before, something y'all can't take from you. You can't take this from me.
Exactly.
No, they try to cook the recipe or whatever it's called, but it ain't the same.
What's that saying that goes often duplicated? What is it?
Some Drake said.
Never. Dang, Drake, it was before Drake.
Okay, I don't know, but I know what you're talking about.
I was about to say something slick by Drake, but no, that's okay.
What has been what's your favorite Black fashion era?
Oh, that's a hard question.
I'm about to say I ain't got no answer for that.
What?
That's a hard question.
You got something that you like. What was your thing? Was it FUBU? Was it the jerseys, the tall tees?
I did used to wear South Pole.
South Pole was the era. Ralph Lauren was the era.
I was really doing something.
Yeah.
The Sperry's and the Ralph Lauren.
Did you say Sperry's?
That was the era,
bro.
With the collars, people was at the club just like
with the shorts. Why was we dressing business casual at the club?
That was the era of Black fashion, though.
Bangles,
for sure. And the hairstyles.
Yes.
The jewelry.
Yes.
The gold. Yes.
We fly, man.
Fly. I think being fly is so important to joy for Black people. But sometimes I don't want to be fly. I just want to be bummy. And that's okay, too.
They don't have, what is it, bummy or is it just relaxed?
I'm going to call it relaxed.
You have your definition.
There you go. It makes me feel empowered.
It makes you feel empowered. How does this contribute to our joy and ultimately impacts our mental health, our clothes, our fashion, and our hairstyle? I think we kind of already answered that question because if we look good, we feel good.
Right.
Okay. So let's move on to rejoicing in Blackness. And
before we get to rejoicing in Blackness,
okay, take me back.
Can you tell me a little bit about how because we accessed clients' joy. How do you help them?
Okay.
How do you help them nurture joy or find joy or be more intentional about accessing their joy?
I think it comes for me. So if I have a client who, let's say, relocated to Houston from a new place, they don't know anybody, we kind of get on this thing where we're going to do at least 2 activities a week. You're going to go out, we're going to try something new, we're going to come back, we're going to report on it. And we're going to say, is it working? Did you like it? How was you feeling? We rating it. Okay, that's something you like, you can put that into the category, we'll do again. If you don't like it, you put it in the category, okay, we're not going to try this again. So we don't got to waste no time trying to force ourselves to like it. That's been one of the ways I've done it. My clients like it. It's just something I randomly came up with in therapy. It works because some people are not scared to go out and try new things by themselves, and some people are, and I understand that. And so then for them people, I say, okay, well, maybe you should try Bumble BFF. And so you can find another person and y'all be friends, and then y'all go try new things together. Because if you both are on Bumble BFF, then you both looking for somebody. So that's one of my interventions of how I try to help people find that joy, but also because sometimes finding joy is also finding your people.
Exactly. Yeah.
For sure. So that's one of the ways in which I do it with my clients.
Yeah. Mine is particularly similar. There was this trend on TikTok and Instagram, I think, where it was mostly for date night, where people would like have random strips of paper. They'll write down the activity, put it in a jar. Yeah. So I've encouraged my clients, especially if they're single, to create their own jar, put whatever activities, and so like whatever they pull, they don't have to immediately do it, but at the very least do it that month. So, and just encouraging exploring different things, or like literally scheduling the activity, you know? So that's one of the interventions for me.
I'm hearing a lot of exploration and a lot of intentional planning so that you make sure that you follow through.
For sure.
Yeah, and and being their accountability partner. But also I'm getting a lot of people who are saying, like, I don't want to be out brunching. I don't want to be out at 50-15. I'm looking for something a little bit more intentional and something that's a little bit more like less TikTok-y.
Okay.
We're just chilling, and it's a vibe, but it ain't the vibe where we're not present,
right,
with our phones all up in our face. So for that, I'm trying to find like a local and open book club, because book clubs are making a comeback, and I'm hearing people talk about how they have been trying to go to book clubs, but it's not really, they're not reading the book. But
I say Kindred.
Kindred have book clubs?
Yeah, they do.
Okay,
they always got one going.
And that's something I always do. I always encourage people to go explore Third Ward and other parts of Houston and get to know the city that you just relocated to.
Exactly.
Because I get a lot of transplants, and being a transplant myself, I understand how important it is to get to know the community. For sure.
I agree.
What about you?
I like that when y'all said in exploration, if they like it, cool, do more of it. If you don't, you don't have to do it.
Nope.
You just have to be open to that first try.
That's it.
For me, I usually go back to, what did you do in childhood?
Oh yeah, that's one I do
what
as well.
What used to bring you joy?
I'm glad you brought that up.
What used to make you laugh or smile, and then so we make a plan to slowly do one of those things at a time. If not that, they will get into the comparison of, like, do I really want to do this, or did I just see it on Instagram, or did I want because I seen it on TikTok? I was like, at that point, there's nothing wrong with it. If it's something that you have access to, sometimes, you may not have had exposure to this idea before.
Agreed.
It might be something that you like.
But sometimes people do influence us to like
and
try
that's
things.
okay.
And I think that it's okay, especially if it's not something that's going to cause you harm and you think it might genuinely bring you joy.
Okay. What do you think that's
You want to bake? Okay, go bake.
People want to be their own self, and that's fine.
I was just wondering, like, I think it's one of those things where perfectionism comes up again, because it's almost like, why don't I know any better? Like, why do I have to be influenced by this person on Instagram I don't know to do something?
The highest act of humanity is to inspire. So if somebody can inspire me to do something that's beautiful, there's nothing wrong with being inspired by another person.
I don't think so either.
I think people don't want to be again, we overcorrect.
Yeah.
Right?
This is true.
That's the word I was looking for.
So they're like, I don't want to be trendy. Like you said, they don't want to be just following the TikTok or the influencers. I'm like, no. This is actually one of the benefits.
Right. And also, like, nobody's going to, more importantly, nobody's going to know. This is between you and I.
I'm about to say, and if you like it, now don't keep doing it if you don't actually like it.
That's
right. Then you're just trying to be trendy.
Right.
Don't do that.
I don't know who said this, but I wrote this down, but I know these are not my words, but they may be. Rejoicing in Blackness is one of the most powerful and necessary things you can do.
That sounds like that's from the Black Love Letters.
No, that ain't what they said. They said something different. But I like what they said too. They said loving a Black person is one of the most radical things you can do.
Oh yeah.
This person said something different. Those both are very important though. That was going to be next. But rejoicing in Blackness, what does that mean? Rejoicing in Blackness.
It's like relishing in it.
Yes.
It's like it fills your entire being. It's like just sitting back like, dang, this is nice.
Unapologetically, though.
Unapologetically feeling just came up for me. And it was Juneteenth at your apartment.
Which one?
At the pool.
Oh, okay.
This one, we had strawberry cake.
Yeah.
We had
fried
red Kool-Aid, fried
mac
fish, mac and cheese, hot sauce. And the other Black folks was out there celebrating Juneteenth.
Oh, yes.
Getting food from
we didn't know each other.
Music playing. We didn't know them, but they was over there. We was kicking.
They cousin does. For
right.
real.
They did. But they brought water guns and they was like, here, y'all want some water guns?
Yes.
We was like, yes, of course.
Yeah. I've been wanting to do something like that again, just like a block party type of.
I love doing it for Juneteenth. I love that
because people really are. I've been seeing a whole bunch of people like, who gonna fry the fish? Who gonna put the meat on the grill? Like
that was one of my questions too. With our generation, with us being the new adults, is that a lost recipe?
Okay, because I don't know nobody.
We don't own no homes though.
We would have to go to parks. Like you could do that at a park. Like they have pavilions. You just gotta reserve it. Like we just don't. People don't. It's a huge undertaking to plan something like that. But I've been wanting to do it for forever.
I used to get from the house barbecue from the grill every summer.
Yes.
I don't think I had it since
I think
I
I'm
became an adult.
I'm gonna figure something out because I'm gonna do that.
Rejoicing in Blackness to me is something we haven't talked about on this session, but it's something that we all have in common, which is going to HBCUs. That is a way that we rejoice in Blackness. I don't think I knew at the time when I was on campus how that was so much Black joy, and how that was a level of freedom that I don't think I'll ever have again that way, the way that I had it there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, that piece is very important to me as a Black person, just being on that campus and just not saying it was perfect, but it was what I needed to be at that time.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it, at least for me, it encourages me to seek places of safety, right? Like at every point, I try to be in spaces that feel safe for me, and I feel safe around my people. I want to share that form of intimacy with my people. I don't desire for closeness outside of my people, if that makes sense. So yeah, being at an HBCU encouraged.
It was
that.
different.
It was different.
It felt like another planet.
Because it
was Wakanda.
My hometown was mostly white. But when I went to tour UAPB, it was an instant feeling that my body and mind felt when I got on campus.
Yeah.
I just said that this
is it.
This is it. This is the place.
Yeah.
And it was never not that place. Anytime I step on campus, even though, like Mercedes said, it was not perfect. We all know financial aid be tripping. But I never not felt at home on my campus.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's how I felt when I visited PV. I knew what I was looking for, sort of, but I didn't know what it felt like too. I didn't know the feeling until I arrived, and I was like, "Oh, this is."
I didn't know I could have the feeling till I got there.
Exactly. It was a place where your Blackness was not questioned, or your Blackness was not just judged, or just. It was just a place where you can be Black and be yourself.
Yeah, and I definitely came more into that.
Everything.
Because of UAPB.
Yeah.
100%.
Shout out to HBCU love.
Yes.
That definitely is a different level of joy. My favorite type of Black joy is definitely being wrapped up in sisterhood. That's my favorite kind. Sisterhood is so important to my Black joy. I think sisterhood is so important to Black women in general. Sure. I feel like sisterhood saves me over and over again. I feel like each time the world abandons Black women, sisterhood is there to pick you up, and nothing gets more joyful than being wrapped up in sisterhood. I think Dr. Joy Bradford said sisterhood feels like a safe place to dream. And I'm like, that is beautiful.
Yeah, because that's what it is.
And you said sisterhood is there to pick you up. For me, it feels like sisterhood never lets me go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so even when I'm out there, or even if something hurts, it's like I still know I'm held. I still know I'm good.
And it's like a warm hug.
Agreed.
That's constant.
Yeah.
Agreed. T, me and you were talking about doing research on sisterhood.
Yes.
And I think that we should. I don't know if there is a lot of research on the role that sisterhood plays, amongst Black women. I think that is so important.
There's not a lot of research.
I know you did a little bit of research.
The highs of Black folks' experiences.
True.
The majority of research on Black people is
trauma related. Which is annoying.
Yeah.
I think that, so since we are all researchers, I think that is a way for us to kind of take that narrative into our own. And which is why I'm like, we need to do research on Black joy. And I did a little research. There were people, NAMI and some other and some other organizations had some Black therapists actually write about Black joy and how important it was, particularly during the 2020s, because that's when we was needing Black joy a lot. And would you say Black joy can save some lives?
Yes. Absolutely.
How?
I'm sure it has.
How does Black joy saves? How can it save us?
You mentioned my research, and so of course that's where my mind automatically went.
Okay, good. Talk about it.
But my research is on Black mothers' experiences with the Superwoman role, and a piece that came out of that was the different types of support all of them have. And so you can see them talking about being caregivers and, fictive kin and multiple roles at work and at home and all of these things.
Okay.
But then you see these moments of support from sisterhood. You see these moments of joy that they have with their children. And they explain it as, this is what keeps me going. Like, this is what gives me the motivation. I'm exhausted, but this is how I maintain.
Yeah.
I think it's essential if you just had the other end of it, just the exhaustion,
Yeah.
just the obligations.
It would make joy feel like a chore.
Yeah.
Because you're too tired to even give yourself permission to access it.
Not just that, then all of the other obligations that you are able to do, you're going to be able to do them less and less and less. It is not sustainable, I think, if you're not having some joy.
For sure.
You're going to fall short in those other areas.
Okay. This conversation is reminding me of some literary giants such as Audre Lorde and Toni Morrison, because Audre Lorde speaks specifically on self-preservation and caring for herself. And she was talking about this at a time when nobody else was talking about it or using this language. So if you are looking for some reads about Black joy or self-care or caring for yourself, I encourage you to do a Toni Morrison research or Audre Lorde search and find some of their books, because they definitely talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
When I think about joy, I think about freedom. What is the element of freedom to joy?
I think the element of, you said the element of freedom to joy.
Is it are they one and the same? They different feelings though.
I think they have to exist together.
I do too.
I think joy gives you the freedom.
So I think freedom gives me the joy, but they both working. Just
I guess it depends on the context.
Yeah.
I guess it depends on the context, and it might depend on what's happening at the time. Because for me, sometimes joy gives you the freedom to continue. Because I don't know if, I guess it depends on how the person's mind is captured in the systemic issues, right? So like,
yes, the mind.
Then we don't feel free, right?
You're
so
right.
then sometimes joy has to come first in order to feel free. So it depends on the person and it depends on what's happening.
Of course.
So the perspective on joy and freedom.
Yeah.
Okay. There was a point when I was like, these systems are not changing. This world is not changing. Like, how am I supposed to be free? Like, how are we really supposed to be free? And I just ran across the Toni Morrison video, and this girl was just like, kind of like what you saying, just tuning into that inner world.
Yes.
And she was talking about freedom being just the ability to choose as a woman your obligations, your responsibilities, not somebody placing this on you, but you saying, it's not that you don't want responsibilities or obligations. It's saying, I get to choose what I'm responsible for.
Exactly.
And I'm like, that is freedom and that is joy.
Exactly. Which is why, like, I don't even know, I always say this, but I really don't know how it's going to translate. When people say, like, this person is bringing down the Black community, I'm like, what community are y'all talking about? Because mine is straight. Like,
right.
I don't know what scale y'all looking at, but, like, my little corner right here, we good. Like, I don't know who you think she representing, but we good over here.
And you said she, so that means we're talking about women. So I think that because I was just going to ask, because this generation of women who are choosing joy, who are choosing freedom and peace, I think that is what people think is bringing down the Black community, because you're not choosing struggle.
Yeah, which goes back to the Black women can only be valued or are only necessary when they are in service of others. And we all need to do a better job at recognizing that, acknowledging that, and doing the work to dismantle it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay. We kind of got in a different aspect of Blackness with that, but that's also very relevant and important to Black joy and the Black experience, for sure.
Yes, because I think it's important that we all have to give each other permission to feel joy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think we get so caught up in our own plight sometimes, or we are feeling down, or we're maybe zoomed out and we're seeing too much, and we are like, I need you to see all of this too. We all see it at different times.
This is true. Yeah. This is true.
Let people feel their joy when they have access to it.
Yeah.
That's
because
true.
they need it.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. And then, so like, I think what you're speaking to is like the collective BS that goes on, and we may see somebody laughing and like, this not funny, we need to focus on this.
Yes.
When, like you just said, okay, they got access to joy right now, let them have that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because again, it's necessary to keep moving on. We don't
have to.
We might need it at a 2 right now. They might need it at a 10. You don't know what's going on.
What's that saying? You could walk and chew gum at the same time?
Hello.
Like, I could
be
like
two things can be true.
And that's why we get mad when people take a break from speaking out or doing something, or they show up imperfect, or they don't speak on something. Hey, they spoke on 9 out of 10 things.
Okay.
Right?
So this conversation is now headed to Black grace. We need to give each other grace, guys.
Yes.
Okay.
Permission
Yes.
for
And
grace,
stop
permission
yelling
for
at each other.
joy.
Sick of it.
We
Sick of it. Be nice.
who yelling at each other?
It just seems like everybody's talking.
Well, the
at
rap
the same
boys are
time.
fighting
Just-
now.
Just
Who? The rap boys.
the girls are fighting.
The rap boys are fighting now.
Yes.
So we can wrap up the session. Black joy by any means necessary. It impacts our mental health in radical ways. So if you have been thinking that you're tired, there's too much going on, find some ways to access some joy, read some books. I say go back to some literature. Find some old books from some people who look like you, who was talking about it way back then. See how they was accessing joy. I find that to be very important and very helpful.
Absolutely.
It inspires
Prioritize
me.
it, plan it the same way you do all your other obligations. Make that a part of your obligations.
Okay, so joy is your responsibility to access. Okay, with that being said, go love yourself.
Go love yourself.
Go love yourself.